Hi and welcome to this week's video. In this video we look at the last third of last week's video, so part 2, and do a few other bits and pieces. So let's see what I get up to. Come on, let's get cracking. This is the accessory plate or rear plate for my engine. I've just put the starter motor on, and that's where our sort of 3¼ inch, 3.5 inch hole was originally bored for this section. We've got the terminals here, which means it's got to be enlarged, and the actual motor section out to the one side. So now that I've got this assembly out of the box, I could adjust the holes as required. Now my bulkhead sort of piece that we made up, the big lump that goes on the front here, which has the mountings, should be 2½ inches, 2½ inches away from here. There'll be standoffs, and so that's where that goes. You can sort of see the terminals are fairly close there, so made it so that's a nice straightforward fit. So that's how it'll sort of sit through. Not a great deal of material going into the cockpit area. Once you actually take into account the wood that's already there, it sort of protrudes in about 2½ inches, I suppose. And so I've modified this so it's got nice clearance, and on there I'll just cut that section out there. I've got the cabane struts in position, and I have actually dressed back this bow so it's got clearance between the rear cabanes and it. It does affect the strength of that, but that's not an area where we need strength really. I must admit I had a little bit of a thought, you know, well, why actually taper this to match up with the front end when I could actually cut here at the bottom and tilt this back a little bit. It'll give me the better clearance here, but my instruments would then foul with various bits and pieces down here, so that's a non-worker. Having cut this scrappy piece of plywood to suit, and used the cardboard as my initial sort of dimension setter, it becomes sort of obvious in places that things aren't quite right. If we look down here, we've got a nice gap. It's slightly off on that side, but I don't need to come down anywhere near as far on the instrument panel for height, so I could go down to that level for the bottom of the hole. That would have been quite good, and do a bit more than that. And I can keep my nice clearances by going there, so by extending that line there I can get that bit sorted out. And I've just created up this little corner block here. Just need to, as you can sort of see, it fits in there reasonably well. I've done the same on the other side, so I'm just going to glue those into position, along with the corner piece here once I've cut that off on the final instrument panel section. Okay, all I've done was I've drilled through, bored the holes here, cut around the sides with the jigsaw. I'm now just going to cut along this line here and here on both sides with a razor saw, so I'll take out the minimum amount of material, so I end up with a nice fit. And then we'll trial it on the aircraft to see what happens. The sides are bonded in now, each side, and the little top pieces, the top corners just up there, one up this side as well, just bonded in. The centre section is just in there just to make sure everything, all the gaps and everything were reasonable. And there we go. It's let that cure off. I won't be playing with that now until next week, so I'll let that fully cure, and then we'll play with the next section. I think you just have to start going down the back end, which will be good, and then I can start working on the cockpit closure area and the tank cover area at some stage in the future. Hopefully I'll make up the engine mounting standoffs not too long distance, and we can dry fit the rear plate, the accessory plate, on with the forward bulkhead section correctly spaced to allow for the firewalling and insulation, and just do the final sections for that hole there, and start working out cable runs and various other bits for hopefully for the carburetor or throttling. But I want to get the block of the engine mounted fairly soon, with cylinders just put into position, so I can work out what we're going to do as far as the cowling, see if I can actually use the original cowl in any form. Hopefully be able to do that. If not, well, no great panic, it'll just be more fun trying to make up a cowl to suit. Hey, let's carry on anyway. This is the upper bulkhead behind the pilot seat. As you can see, I've cut away all this chunk here. You might just be able to see that I've got a line section there. That's where the headrest sort of position is going to be. And you can see here that I've got two sort of lozenge shaped pieces being bonded on, that's 1/8 of an inch thick. That's where the seat belts shoulder harnesses are going to go through, so I'm just thickening up this ply section, and I'll put in a bit of structure behind for the seat belts to rest on, so that in the event of an impact the seat belts don't just crush down the plywood, and that, so it's got a little bit of support. You can sort of see, I'm quite tall, so that's where the sort of shoulder height is. My shoulders are at that height in the aircraft, so gives you an idea of how the bulkhead is sort of set up. I think for most average height people, the seat belts would probably be coming through about here. But what I've done, which is what's been suggested to me in the past, is the seat belt slot should be level or very slightly lower than your shoulder. So that's just what I've been told. I don't know if anybody else has come up with anything different to that. And also it needs to be slightly narrower, so that it's narrower than your sort of neck, so it's helping to keep the shoulder straps on your shoulders as they go as it goes through that bulkhead. And that's what I'm going to have there. My shoulder straps are quite wide, they're 3-inch wide shoulder straps. Just helps to spread the load when you have an arrival. I've got the little holes just drilled there as markers. I'm going to drill through each end one here with a 1/2-inch drill. That will give me the line to put this piece on, which is just a piece of 3/4 by 3/4, but it's going to sort of sit something like that on the back, so that the seat belt's got something to ride over. And then once this is fitted to the aircraft, I'll put in a couple of vertical pieces to the cross member just to help stop the sort of crush. I will actually be putting those in at an angle to the centre of where the belt goes towards the outer edge, not right the way out but close towards the outer edge, so that it's isn't trying to put a flex into the beam in the middle. Adds a little bit of weight by having the extra wood, but hey ho. You may be able to see going around the edge here, I've marked in the stringer positions. I'm using less stringers. I've chopped the top off here so it's lower, and I want to just make the spacing nice and even, so I just use a pair of dividers. Stepped it out going around, nothing particularly spectacular. In the kit, these ply blocks were supplied to give the stringer something to bond onto. So this is the stringer material, and it sort of sits, you don't force it right down into the bottom of the groove there. It's got a 1/16 of an inch or so clearance at the top, which is good. I'm going to be sanding about 1/16 off where the cap strip's going to go around. So if these are fitted right up against the edge of the frame like that, it'll be it'll work out. I'll do the same to the rear frame. I have rounded the corners off on these quite substantially. The ones that actually came had hard corners, but the majority of the work's done, so I'm going to say that's probably saved a fair chunk of time. Well, there we go, some wee bit is carried out. I've got the blocks all the way around the edge there for the stringers. This is the support one for the shoulder straps going down with the diagonals. It's a bit of a strange angle on here because this is all tilting back and it's actually on the aircraft. These wee blocks here, just to stop, should we end up with a downward force on the shoulder straps, just gives a better glue area. It's side grain to side grain rather than just relying on the end grain here. I could have cut a notch into this so that it was actually locked in. Thought about that a little bit, thought it's actually probably weakening the area because the seat belt will be able to sort of like flex around, so I decided I wouldn't do that. I don't think I'm adding too much weight by that. Cut out the top of the headrest for a second anyway. Now let's have a quick look at what else I've been up to. There's a small rounded section which levels off, put onto the bow section here, with a ply plate on going across to there. That makes this bow a bit more rigid, but the main reason, something you won't be able to see really, I don't suppose, underneath here is a block going across which will actually hold the fuel wing selector tap, and there are the blocks all fitted at the back end. The upper cockpit bulkhead in place, bonded, so see it's fairly rigid. These areas here will be dressed back with the router as normal, just to bring it back into line with there. This is all glued up. A little bit of a gap going along that bottom line there. That's the width of the jigsaw blade really. So I did have to use staples to just hold this back. I didn't quite hold it as flat against the backing pieces I'd like. So this bit of ply is very slightly proud, so I'll have to sand it back. It may go through just the very top veneer. This is 5 ply. Might go through the very top veneer, I don't know. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put tape top and bottom of that little joint, and I'm going to use a mixture of resin and sawdust just to fill that gap. And I'm going to fit the top stringer in from there, through there into place. Now that all set off, and then the next stage from there is to mark up the stations where the new frames formers are going to be. Same positions as they were originally, but they're different sizes, and I can then go through the process of making those up so that they can support the other stringers once I've got that top one in. So that's the plan. Oh, and there's the fuel selector tap, just roughly in place at the moment. That's where it's going to sit, like that. So there it is, fitted at that end. At this end I've put a peg in to the leading edge. That'll be glued in. It comes back into this stringer, so we've actually got a joint because it hasn't got these nice blocks to hold everything in place. So I'll just make that joint a little bit stronger. Of course it's going to be reinforced by the plywood going over the top as well, but it just helps strengthen everything up. And the masking tape is in place now, ready to fill that little gap up. So I'm just going to go and bond this a lot together, and then I'll fill that gap with resin and sanded sawdust to bulk it up. Well, this is really the last bit for this week. I've just put in some blocks going around for the instrument panel mounting screws to go into, or for the threaded inserts to go into. So that all's got to cure off. That won't be until later on. So I think that's really as far as I'm going to be able to go. That's it pretty much for this week. Top of the rear cockpit bulkhead pretty much in, first stringer in, and the instrument panel getting there for its fixings. So next week probably do a bit more on the instrument panel fixings. So we've got the blank instrument panel ready to go, and we'll be working on the frames to support the remainder of the stringers. So that's got to be done. Let's see if we can get there. Hopefully I'll have lost this frog in my voice. So hopefully you'll keep well, and I'll catch you next week. Bye now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. You can subscribe or even hit the little bell notification for future videos. Any comments would be appreciated, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Remember, go fly and feel the sky.